Hello, welcome back to Lockbox Lunatics. I'm Chad Kamp here in Chandler, Arizona with EXIT Realty Coannah. Got my trusty cohort, Steve Lambert from Kennewick, Washington, on the line as well.
Hey there, good morning. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. I'm excited. We've got a returning guest. We didn't scare him away the first go around. We've got James Rowlett. They're out of Houston, Texas. Welcome, James. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good. So we've been talking a little bit prior to the session today, and we're going over some of the pros and the cons of the national MLS, right? So getting those out of the hands of, and realistically, the national MLS would benefit the agents in regards to helping get exposure across the country and drive consumers to one site instead of some of these other IDX feed sites such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. And so it's kind of interesting take that we've been watching James go on through his TikTok channel, and as well as what we've been discussing today. So James, why don't you go ahead and start touching on the subject, and Steve, if you've got any input, obviously by any means, jump in.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah. So national MLS. I guess I've been bringing this up, and people kind of get bowed up on. They don't like the idea of, well, there's different standards in different states, different rules. It could even be possibly per an MLS, and I get that. But I guess the thing I'm trying to bring up on this is not even when I say a national MLS, it doesn't necessarily have to be controlled nationally. It would almost be like, why doesn't the National Association of Realtors have a National Association of Realtors website that shows all the listings? I mean, you could have a feed as simple as that, and that would satisfy the requirement that we're looking for. Because if all these different portals can do it with just a basic IDX feed, you've already got it. Why wouldn't you just be able to do that with your own website? And how can you tell me that this is, sorry, my allergies and nose is killing me, so my eyes watering. But yeah, but how can you have this whole take that you're like, well, I don't want to deal with it, or it's difficult or whatever. I'm like, it can't be that difficult. I mean, if you honestly look at it, any of the large brokerages, whether it's, I'm with Compass, Redfin, Keller Williams, Remax, EXP, they can do it. I mean, everybody seems to be able to do this. But why wouldn't you just go ahead and say, hey, this is the site that we're going to have that is truly going to show all of the information? And I don't know. It's like also it goes back, like I said, it's IDX reform, changing the rules on how people display and misdirect the consumer. But if we got it to where the National Association of Realtors, if they're pulling in all this money, they could start a website, they could start an advertising campaign, they could do whatever to where they become the national site that you go on to look at stuff, and they could also regulate it, so you don't have to worry about issues with, like, fair housing violations, which is a big one. So I see, as the information just keeps going further and further out there, we keep advancing. You're now seeing Zillow and Redfin using AI in a way that goes against the policies, but NAR doesn't seem to be interested in enforcing those, and right now a lot of the MLSs don't seem to either. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. Instead of having leadership that they seem to have enforced 5 or 6 years ago, now they're really getting lax on it, and this is probably where we need it more than any time. So,
And I think the biggest issue that
I don't
agents
know.
would
I'm just sitting there. I don't know what else to say on it. It's pretty simplistic.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue agents would have on that are those agents that are actually getting Zillow leads, because I think they see
Absolutely.
that it threatens their ability to continue, operating their business as they have been. So those agents like me, that I don't buy leads off of Zillow.
Right.
I'm the one goes out and finds these listings and market them. So to have a centralized location, that makes sense to me, to where anybody in
Right.
the country can go to NAR and look up this information. And just having simply a website like you suggest, that's going to remove a lot of the cons that agents would have, because I'm a big proponent. Obviously we don't like monopolies. And the more centralized control you have over something, the less it's going to work well for the small agent, right? And
Oh,
so
100%. Yeah.
yeah, we still want to protect that small agent. And
Right.
if you simply just point the IDX feed to a website, I mean, we're paying, I don't even remember what our NAR dues are anymore. I just know that they keep going up. And
Yeah.
and there should be simply a website that it just feeds into. I agree with you 100%. That it should feed into, and it just points right back to the listing agent, period, end of story, we're done.
Well, I'll be a little facetious here. This is kind of interesting. So So James, how dare we suggest this? The NAR only knows what every single licensed realtor is in the United States, has all their information, and has every single access to all the IDX
Yeah.
feeds. How dare they create a simple page where you can search? It's so easy. That's the funny part is that they have access to data that nobody else has, better than the portals. They literally
Right.
have all the information. Their website goes pages deep with all kinds of different rules and regs and all these other things and handouts and consumer, all this great stuff. And what a better way for NAR to help actually create and tell the story a little bit better about realtors and what we do and who we are and how we do it than to have people come into their website like a Zillow all the time to look for properties. Like you said, I agree 100% on that. It would be so easy.
Right. And I just, and that's the thing is, it goes back to it always, I always go back to follow the money. And obviously there's got to be some type of monetary incentive. And that's the problem off of this is I guess either they chose it wasn't in their best interest. Maybe they were paid by some of the portals, the money that was coming in for the industry for MLSs, maybe NAR or whatever, that it was easier to do nothing and receive money versus to increase the dues and do something that would actually support the members that you claim to advocate for, which, it's weird that the name says the National Association of Realtors. It doesn't say NAP, the National Association of Portals. It's not, you've got a specific people you're supposed to be advocating for. And of course, and you're supposed to protect the consumer. And it comes back to it. It's like, it's still, yes, the consumer is important. And that's the number one goal of NAR, I feel like, is consumer protection. But wouldn't it be great to have consumer protection if you actually had the national site that you controlled to make sure that fair housing violations weren't happening, that the data was not being manipulated in a nefarious way that's bad for the public? I mean, I'm sorry, that just makes too much sense. I
You
don't
think
know.
it would make sense, but it's like you said, follow the money, right? Think
Yeah,
about the amount of people, the number of people that work within local MLS structures, the fees that are collected, and how many other affiliated. I think there's 14 or 15 people with our little teeny local MLS here that are all full-time employees getting all this stuff. So think about that times
yeah,
500 and something across the nation.
yeah.
Those MLSs are going to protect their turf, right? They don't want to see
Right.
a national MLS because that means they could potentially go away and you could have just a regional representative from NAR to help assist with questions, based upon certain municipalities or however you want to do that. But I think that because of, like you were saying, when you follow that money trail, there's too much money being bandied about here and there between all these different MLSs and fees and this and that to where they don't want to see the MLS themselves don't want to see a national MLS.
Right. And this goes back too. It's like it's not even, because there's people that come at me because they're like, well, the rules and stuff like that vary from state to state, and you can't do that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've thought about this to where you could just have, like we use Matrix here in Houston. There's multiple different systems that people use. But you could have it to where, like I said, you could have a toggle to where it's a national MLS, a true MLS like that, where you do this. But it's like it's still managed within your jurisdiction, So the greater Houston area, mine would still be it could still be managed here. You would still need people to manage that stuff. But that might be a little much. But honestly, when you start thinking about this, like it doesn't even have to be a national MLS. It's a national website that's controlled, but then you kind of enforce the rules that you have in place on all these other sites, that are the portals, and even, going against brokerage sites, if they actually are trying to monetize leads, redirect, misdirect, whatever term you want to use, you start shutting that stuff down, and you're like, no, you can't do this, and this is our information. And if you're doing this, you can ban the IDX feed on these people to stop them from doing it. And that's the whole thing. It's like you set rules in place, you actually enforce it, but it's really it's set so that way it's a fair level playing field for real estate agents and also for the consumer that knows it's a site that they can trust, that they're not being manipulated, that you're not putting on. I mean, like, Zillow has on, hey, here is a offer guide on. This is a strategy that you can do to lowball the house and the percentage chance of the home seller accepting that. How is that freaking good for the home seller?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's undermining the process of the MLS. I mean, if we actually allowed comments by agents on our MLS that goes, oh, the listing at 123 Main Street is freaking 10% over, or yeah, that's like 50,000 off. It's like if we allowed comments on that, That's messed up. You can't do that. But yet Zillow has done that. And that's what happens when you allow a tech company to take our feeds and do this and not necessarily think about the people you're supposed to be protecting, which is the consumer, which is buyers and sellers. But like I said, the consumer on Zillow is not the buyers and sellers. It's the real estate agents who are paying for the leads. That's their consumer. And so that's why you see the model kind of get weird, and they're making it utilitarian to cater to buyers, but you still got to worry about the home sellers too. So if you're doing something that's good for the buyers but sucks for the home seller, you really shouldn't do it. It's like if it's good for all parties, I get it. But whenever you actually, it's lopsided, that's wrong. And if it was controlled by real estate agents or by an organization that says treat all parties fairly in a transaction, or yeah, you would strike that down.
Well, you bring up a great point. Like you said, if it's in the comments section and says, hey, this house is overpriced, how fast would we end up back in court, number one, because we're breaking every fiduciary responsibility, ethics, all kinds of different things, right? And and that in and of itself is a huge issue. And yeah, like you said, it's not there to help the home seller. And as we kind of discussed in our other episode, is that the home is the product. That is what it is.
And I think a lot of the agents have a lot of hesitation with regards to a national MLS. They might be concerned about, advocacy being reduced at the local level. And I think you're spot on with, keep the local boards in place, let them monitor and let them, run any type of compliance checks that they need to. They can also restrict certain feeds that go into the national MLS that would be against local regulations. But I love the fact that, we're able to advocate for our clients, but we're not able to advocate for the agents, right? And what I mean by I love that, I'm being facetious, right? Because NAR, I've said this before, NAR left their first love. And they left it for what? And you hit the nail right on the head, James. Money, as far as I'm concerned. That's my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
Anyone else. But that's one thing with hesitation. I think agents with the national MLS it's they're overcomplicating it. And James, I love how you just right down to simplify it to just give us a website. Feed to it, have our local boards, have our local MLSs, restrict the data that can't be given from a local perspective, make sure that data is clean, and call it a day.
Yeah. And it goes back to, like I said, the abuse of the fact that, we have the deceptive practices thing. That's the lawsuit against Zillow right now on it's misdirecting consumers that are clicking a contact agent button, schedule a tour button. They think they're contacting a listing agent. They're not. You would have basic reform within how IDX is used and presented on a website. And it pretty much limits that. But if you had the national site and you really started doing this, and instead of us paying that stupid $65 fee that we have to pay for, it's a consumer advertising campaign to create consumer awareness for us, which now they're diverting they're diverting like $40 of it to pay for the lawsuit for the payments off of this, which you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? You're like, well, gosh, it's like they're taking around $65-70 million a year off of real estate agents, because that $65 doesn't sound like much, but when you actually put it into 1.5 million agents, that's like $65-70 million. And it's like it's not that much. I guess it's like 60 or whatever it is, but yeah, you start going through the numbers off of this, and I think my math might be off. I'm trying to remember what the fee was. It's like maybe it's only $60.
Well, here's the thing: you bring up a great point, though, right? When you're in manufacturing and you're a buyer, if you can save 2 cents off of a part that you're going to make 15 million of, 2 cents doesn't sound like much until it's 15 million times over, right? It's a lot of money.
I'm sorry, it's 45. It's $45. That's what it is. It's $45, and they're diverting $30. It's been a minute since I looked at that data. It's $45 is what they charge us, and they're now skimming, I believe, $30 of it off, and then or maybe 30 or 35, and they're only leaving like $10 or $15 for the consumer awareness campaign, which is for the slogan of "That's who we are." Which you say that to anybody, you're like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, well, that's apparently our slogan. I asked that question at the NAR Next convention they had here in Houston in November, and it was funny to watch realtors, not real estate agents, realtors at the NAR convention, and you ask them their slogan and watch the blank look on their face as I said it. They're like, "What's that?" You're like,
Yeah.
well, that's our
Well,
slogan.
we talk
Yeah.
about advocacy and that we have money going for this. Personally, I don't see much advocacy happening. I see it going towards doing a new logo, a new R that nobody cared about to begin with, and the consumer
Yeah.
could have cared less anyways. And the consumer still can't tell you what it stands for anyhow. So it's very interesting that we have that. And in terms of Chad, I know you had brought up different rules and regulations for different areas with MLSs. With where AI is now in a developer in the back end, a development team, which would be a very affordable with how much NAR gets from us, it would be so easy for them to be able to have back end, basically scripting that says when a listing comes in from this area and it goes national, this data has to be scrubbed. It would understand. You could make rules in the back end so fast to handle that. It's not like it would be complicated to do that. They
The
really
local
could.
MLSs are set up to notify us agents, at least here in the Phoenix area, if there's something that goes against the standards, right?
Like an eye check system is what we have. Yep.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's automated, it's already in there. It's just tying
hmm
it in with the national website. And so I'm with James. I don't understand why agents would not want to do this. I mean, one of the cons as well is just basically control. And there again,
hmm
I think this answers that or resolves that issue is keeping the control at the local level and let them push through whatever they want to push through on the feed. I honestly I had to Google what are the negatives to a national MLS, right? Because the only thing I could think of was the monopoly side of things. But
Yeah.
as soon as you just understand that it's just going to be a website, that goes away, right?
Yeah.
The other thing
Yeah.
was potential for increased fees. Well, that is one thing that James touched base on because someone's got to pay for it, right? There's no free lunch, right?
hmm
So there is a potential for increased fees. But honestly, if I'm going to benefit, now I'm a business owner, so I think a little bit differently than probably most real estate agents. But if I'm going to benefit more from my listing than say a Zillow, someone paying for Zillow, it makes sense to me. I know whenever Zillow gives out a lead, I'm going to have to fight with three or four other people to beat them to the lead, right? Because you got to call them within like what 5 minutes. And unfortunately, I'm not always just sitting around waiting for my phone to get that lead from Zillow. I'm either showing property or what have you. And so as far as that's concerned, there's not very many cons. So hopefully, if you get our message today,
hmm
anyone that's watching this episode, National MLS, if the end site is just a website, it'd be a great thing for us as agents. It's going to be horrible I think I've heard James call them, Zillow bootlickers, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I do use that term. People love that.
you
Not
do,
really,
and,
but
and I love that term because that's exactly what it is. And I
yeah.
understand Zillow is feeding their family, and I'm not against feeding their family, but I also understand that hey, there's some of us out here that are feeding our family as well, and we're the ones in touch with the consumer. We're the ones getting those listings, and we should be the ones benefiting from it.
Yeah. And here's the other part too. It's like they're talking about, well, this is going to completely blow up the Zillow leads and all these flex teams. And there are agents that are relying on this. We're messing it up. I'm like, okay, those flex teams, you're not messing it up for the team members. You're messing it up for the team leader. So it's not a team. It's just one person that's actually overseeing this. Because what would happen is all of a sudden you have listing agents who aren't getting clicks on their listings, all of a sudden getting calls on their listings again. And
hmm
guess what? They're going to need agents to field that. So where could they possibly get a buyer's agent from? These flex teams are going to dissolve. The agents are going to end up on listing agent teams to start doing this. And it's a much more robust team now to where it is, yeah, I've got 30 listings here and I need buyer's agents to go out and show it. Because you could have 30 listings right now and you're lucky to get a couple of calls a week because everything's getting skimmed off.
Yeah.
Imagine if it came back in-house and instead of you paying 35, 40% of the commission out to Zillow before anything else happens, these agents who are on these flex teams are working literally for like 30% of the commission. They're not even getting a third. They're at 30%. Imagine you take 40%, put it back into the equation. You could get savings to the consumer. You could actually increase the amount of money that the buyer's agents are making, and the teams make more money. The brokers make more money. It's a win-win-win-win scenario. The only people that would be really upset over this would be a Zillow Flex team leader, not a Zillow Flex team member. So it's
Yeah.
a
No,
small,
yeah.
minute people. And it's like, okay, stop paying for your freaking business and go out and beat the bushes like the rest of us had to do.
You're right, and one doesn't necessarily replace the other. And people, I think that's what they, like you said, that you're spot on with who's fearful about this.
Mhm.
And but NAR having a affiliate, just one MLS site and having one website for it doesn't mean the portals can go away. Doesn't mean they have to go away. They're still going to be out there. There's always way to scrape the data. You can get it once it gets posted on NAR. You can scrape it and pull it from there. But the thing is that we need to on the back end be more organized as agents to be able to, like you said, serve our clients better. If I know that James has a listing in Houston because I'm pulling it up sitting here in Washington and I say, oh, James has got this house, I've got clients moving there, I can reach out to James directly. We can create that connection. I can get my clients in his hands, right? Right now, it's so convoluted the way I have to go try to find that I'm stabbed, throwing things in the dark, trying to find an agent in Houston that I can talk to, and then I try and explain the house to him versus being able to just find it all in one spot. It would be so much more streamlined, which is better for us in terms of being more efficient for our clients, which at the end of the day is what our goal is to serve our clients better, right? And so it just makes so much sense on a lot of different levels, not only the consumer side, but the professional side, and then the efficiency and economies of scale side. It just makes a lot of sense.
The other part of it too is, of course, I don't know how y'all's MLSs are set up, but here in Houston, you got to pay. It's called platinum services. Everything's about money. You got to pay an extra $120 a year, but if you pay it, it allows you, when you close a transaction, the buyers and the sellers can get an email that goes directly to them that says, would you like to rate James on the transaction? And there's 4 categories, and you can do, 1 to 5 stars across the board. And knock on wood, I'm still at 5 stars, but 300 plus deals, I'm over 150 feedbacks, 5 stars all the way across the board, which that's pretty great. So if you had a national MLS when it has the listing agent, not only instead of you could click it on there, but you could have it to where it could even hyperlink back to the local MLS consumer page that you click on it, and you could see all my reviews, read my bio, all that stuff, and go, oh, this guy's the nuts. Hell, well, I'll work with him or I'll give him a call. You could do that. Of course, now if you're a sucky agent, I understand you don't want anybody to know anything, but you're like, I just want them to click on this and me pay a chunk of money to Zillow. It's like, and then they get hoodwinked, and then I get the fresh crop, next week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, that's not a way to do business. You're actually propping up bad behavior in that type of scenario.
And let's face it, there might be somebody out there that wants that half-star agent, and that's okay. Maybe they want to be mistreated. I don't know.
All about choice. All about choice. So,
right,
all right. Well, we're coming to an end here. James, I really appreciate you coming back and joining us again. Good topic on the national MLS. For those that have watched, we appreciate your time. If you would like, comment, and as well, share this with the other agents in your sphere. But yeah, we'll go ahead and look forward to catching up with you folks next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.